there.
That wasn't awkward at all. That was totally smooth, by the way. All right, welcome back, everybody. So, okay, good, Andy. Well, we'll see you as soon as you're on camera. So anyway, one of the things I wanted to help us to talk about today is just really some of those organizational shifts, and that what are our stakeholders going to need from us to make those shifts, and what are we going to need from an organizational perspective from stakeholders to make the shifts that are part of our year of learning plans that we're operationalizing now. So I was hoping what we could do is start by doing a real quick reflective activity. And then I'll put everybody in breakouts and we can kind of discuss. They're in the agenda in that first section. Can you does everybody have access here? I'm gonna go put it up here. There is a prompt, which there are a couple of shifts that I outlined here, but what are other shifts that you're seeing in your communities as you start to navigate generative AI, as you start to put those plans into practice? If you wanted help kind of thinking through that, I did put right down here a prompt. So if you wanted to copy and paste this prompt into the LLM of your choice, it will prompt you with questions to help you uncover some additional shifts. So welcome to use that, or you're welcome to just kind of through it. But go ahead and take a few minutes and think through what are the shifts that you're starting to see, and then we'll have some time to talk about it. Let's come back in. Let's say, let's do 3 minutes. If you just want to think to yourself for now, if you want to jot it down next to you, you can. You don't necessarily need to share it just yet. Just kind of want to give people some think time before we hop into conversation. Folks just joining us, welcome. We're in, the agenda is in the chat. We are just kind of thinking through that first question, which is just about shifts that you're noticing in your organization as you start to navigate generative AI, as you start to think through operationalizing your year learning plan. All right, I'm going to put us into breakouts to discuss. Did anybody use the prompt by any chance? Any reflections on using the prompt?
It's actually just really cool for it to kind of ask me questions, and it makes it more conversational going back and forth.
Okay.
It's a neat way to do it for sure.
Okay, all right, cool. Anybody else? Okay.
It would be interesting to hear what tool they use, because Perplexity does give you prompts. And so I dumped it into Perplexity and I kept waiting for something to pop up. And the first thing it did was ask me a question. I'm like, dang, can you give me something that you want first?
Okay. Did anybody use something other than Perplexity?
I used Gemini. And it did start with a question, but then, I gave it 4 ideas and then it asked me more questions about those 4 ideas. So So it helped me, I guess, think more deeply. I didn't really get to answer the second set of questions because there were a lot of them.
Mhm.
And so, you know, in that way, it might be better as a discussion to move from where we're at right now to a discussion.
Mhm.
Because it would take a lot to answer them into a chat bot,
Mhm.
a lot of time.
For sure. See some chat.
Julie, this reminds me of a prompt I first typed back in April of last year when I was really just learning how to prompt engineer. And the prompt that I had open was, I lead a professional learning organization. How do I build a program that helps school systems scale across a continent? And amazingly, that dialogue became a significant part of the DNA of how we mobilized. And what I liked about that prompt was that I could interact with it for a while, put it down, come back another day, another week. I could bring colleagues in and we could look at it and then interact with it. It really became an organic dialogue that you just can't have in a short window. That's cool.
Cool. Okay, great. All right. So what I'd love for you to do is take the shifts that you uncovered and that you thought about and go into breakouts. Usually I say, here's a protocol. If you want to use a protocol, great. If you don't want to use a protocol, don't. But I'm going to ask you to please use the protocol this time, because I think what we're going to find is when we come back out that we're going to have some resources to share. So there are a series of questions here. Each group has a place to capture your thinking and your discussion as a group. So would love for you to go through these, sort of unpack, what are the shifts that you uncovered and that you're really seeing in your community? And then as you think through that, have the group kind of help you. What do you as an organization need from stakeholders in order to make that shift happen? What might stakeholders need from you? And then what are the resources that might enable either of those or both of those things? And then let's come back and have a full conversation about it. I'm going to give you a solid 30 minutes in breakouts to do this. If anybody gets stuck or it's too much time, just give me a shout. I'll kind of be going through each of the breakout rooms. So we'll come back in about 30 minutes and I'll give you a couple minutes. Heads up. Any questions? All right. See you shortly.
Julie, are you sending us or were they pre-assigned groups?
They're pre-assigned.
I've been buried in my work and I was like,
Yes.
Dawn, Andy, and Eric were saved by your cane. I was just about to tell them some pointless trivia about something that had nothing in common with generative AI. The timing was perfect.
Okay, great.
But I was still really looking forward to it.
Well, maybe Amos can close us out with useless trivia.
Oh, if there's anything I can do.
Dawn, are you willing to share your, I didn't ask you this before we ran away from our group. Are you willing to share your vetting process with us?
I mean, I can share as much as I can for sure. I'll kind of have to ask some higher ups. Some of it's a little above me, but yeah, I'd be happy to share that with you all, at least from the outside. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not gonna, we're not scrutinizing. We just want a model to build from.
For sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Fantastic. So I wonder if each group would just share really briefly, like what's the shift that you spent the most time talking about? And are there any nuggets that you would want to share with the full group? Anybody from group one want to share?
I'm happy to synthesize. So Jefferson County and Mesa were together, and we could have approached any problem of practice. We chose to focus on where the rubber really hits the road, which is at the intersection of the classroom where teachers and students are engaged in teaching and learning. And so we really focused on how to put high quality, proven, safe, and secure tools in the hands of educators without having to go top down and opening it up to everyone. So we talked about how good process, good policy creates a vetting process that allows a district to manage its vendors and to stay true to learning outcomes that are important to the community, while also identifying an early adopter cohort, a trailblazer crew that can become accessible incubators for what, not just what innovative practice around generative AI looks like, but the willingness to take risks and the willingness to share successes and failures alike is where we spent most of our time.
Perfect, thank you. The group that Julie Ray was in, you all talked a little bit about risk and some of those mindset shifts as well. Do you want to share a little bit about your group?
I'll go ahead and share. One of the things that we talked about is that in order to really engage deeply in the professional learning that might be offered, whatever it might be, people really do have to go through kind of a mindset shift, you know, from that fearing, trying to control, to really imagining what could be and embracing how AI can empower our learners. We did talk a lot about professional learning, and, you know, in our district, one of the things that we have heard loud and clear from our innovators is that the thing they need the most is time, which they don't really get during a school day. We're trying to provide them with some time, but I will tell you, like, to really learn how to use AI well, and all of you have been, you know, experimenting and trying it, there's nothing that's going to take the place of actual time to practice, right? And so, you know, we're doing a lot of thinking about how to partner people that are thinking about trying the same things, and then creating space and time for them to do that work together, and then share it back with a larger group for the benefit of everyone. So, you know, time is always the word in education that we can't seem to give people enough of.
Great, thanks, Tammy. Beth, how about your group?
So our group talked similarly to that, as well as we talked about a lot of stuff in the little time we had together. So we talked about policies, some of the policies that kind of help and support and guide this. We talked a lot about mindset shifts and pedagogical shifts, and how, similar to the last group, moving people from that fear quickly and iterating quickly to, okay, understand that this is not going anywhere. So how do we get past the fear to get to ways to really support our learners? And then Kim, hop in and tell me anything else I'm missing from the notes, because I know you are a note taker. I know we had some really great conversations around various levels of ways it could be implemented. So I know I'm missing some really great parts of the conversation.
I think you hit it. If you guys can go ahead and look at the group 3 stuff, I thought the conversation about prompting to me was very interesting, because what we talked about is prompting classes for staff, but should we have prompting classes or possibly even embedded in computer science for our students? And this brought up the idea of the POG, or the portrait of a learner or a graduate, in that these are skills that aren't synonymous to a single course, but to every course.
Great, thanks, Kim. Teresa, I know you were the feature participant in your group. Do you want to say a little bit about what you all talked about?
We really focused on the problems of practice that we're facing here in Cumberland, which, you know, we're trying to tackle all of the shifts at one time, but primarily the pedagogical shifts, and really that's our major next jumping off point. We've spent this year really focusing on guidance development, and know that our next big push is really taking teachers, like somebody said, the rubber hits the road, right?
Absolutely. Thanks, Teresa. Anything else that hasn't been shared yet that you want to share for the good of the group?
I would share one last thing from our group, which was we started to have some great conversation around, and Rob, I'm going to call you out on this. We had some great conversation that Rob lifted to the group around thinking about careers and the impact of what the skill set is on careers, not necessarily the career itself, but the skills and dispositions needed in those careers, and the importance of us having those conversations moving forward.
Fantastic, thank you. So a lot of different shifts on mindset and ideas of readiness and what that means. Shifts on process, shifts on how we're preparing folks, both in the classroom and as educators and leaders. Shifts from literacy to fluency, and then the impact of skills shifts in terms of just how we're thinking about our role and the role of learning in kids' futures. So really appreciate the conversation. I'd love to take kind of these the notes that you all took and synthesize those a little bit and kind of bring those back, and we can think through some next steps together. The next piece of what I'd love to chat about sort of has something to do with that, which is this summit that we are really excited about at Vanderbilt University in May. There are some logistical details in the agenda. We're sort of starting to plan our agenda, and they say that you should write the book you need to read. So I'm hoping that this group can help us inform what is the the experience that you need to have, and help us design that. So there are a couple of questions in there, but and there's a Fig Jam actually. I'm so sad about Jamboard, but I'm sure Fig Jam will be amazing too. But there is a thing if you want to add some ideas, but I'd love to just have a conversation if you're willing to just unmute and share. What would be really what are the panelists that you want to hear from? Like who are the people that you want to hear from? What's the content that you're really hoping to come and really get as you yeah, exactly. In terms of your experience, we're really hoping people come and bring teams of folks. And there are a few different tracks that we've designed based on your experience with generative AI and where your readiness level is as a district. But just wanted to open up for conversation to see if you have thoughts on what that experience could look like and make it meaningful.
For me, I'll just say, speak for our district, because as I shared, we've spent so much time at this level that we really need some practical applications for teachers.
Do you want us to just share out loud things that we're thinking about what we'd like to see?
That'd be great. If you're more comfortable in the Fig Jam, go for it. But I'd love to hear from folks. Yeah.
One of the things I'm wondering is like, I'd love to hear from some of the testing services to see like, how are their assessments going to adapt? Because if they don't adapt, it really makes it difficult for us who in the learning process, right? So I'd love to hear from those folks.
And to that end, content developers. I mean, the the publishers are, it's going to be a totally different landscape.
And I'd like to hear from employers what's most important to them when our kids graduate. And I think some of you touched on that earlier. I think, Beth, you mentioned that Rob talked about that what is cheating in school is probably a work expectation in industry. How do we shift our thinking around what's most important that our kids are able to take with them as they go into college and career?
Yeah, not in college. Andy mentioned college. Beth had mentioned in her doctoral program, the expectations are for students to be using AI as a tool. So I don't know if it's worth having higher ed there to represent that, but that's an interesting piece. I think it'd be interesting to hear from schools or districts who have their students using this, who are out ahead. They've got their staff using it. Now they've got students using it. They've got policies and protocols in place. They're dealing with the ethical considerations. They're dealing with kind of training these students on a technology that's important. I'd like to hear from some of those kind of, early adopters who are out there ahead.
And to piggyback a little on something that was shared just ahead of the few statements ago, is maybe even the budgeting side of this. When we start looking at, we know developers and vendors are going to have some phenomenal products coming with AI embedded, but at what cost? So then what are we looking at to be able to access this incredible, like right now, so much is free, but what is the anticipation of what it's going to cost us to have access for our students for some of the amazing things that are coming?
And alongside that, what does parent education look like? What do our parents need to know and understand about the work we're doing, the safeguards that we're trying to keep and put in place? And then I think we can't leave the parents out of this conversation.
Maybe also like how to support students' social emotional learning in ways that will not be, I can only imagine the potential harms that can be caused if we aren't really thoughtful about that piece. So maybe CASEL or some of those other organizations that I'd love to hear what they're thinking about and doing in response.
Any others?
I think it would be interesting to see, or to have somebody who could speak at a very high level about what's still coming. I watch videos on YouTube a lot of time with Sam Altman from GPT, and the things that are just about to break, I think it's going to change again. It would be interesting to have somebody who has a good 30,000-foot view of what they think is coming, because, again, in our group, Beth mentioned that we've just jumped some of our staff 4 generations of tech, but it's going to be 8 in the next time frame. It's going to be 12 generations. It's moving so fast. It would be really interesting to hear from somebody who has that kind of view of what's coming that's going to be even crazier in this realm.
Along those same lines, like, we as adults, we have fully formed brains, right? So yes, this transition is going to be hard for us, but when we outsource activities that engage our brains and connect neurons and all of that, like, I'm worried about what could potentially happen to students, because they're not going to be brought up in the same way that they're actually they're already not being brought up in the same way that we are. And so I'd love to hear from the medical professionals. Like, are they studying that? What changes are they anticipating? How can we mitigate harm around student brain development? And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it'll completely be great, right? Maybe it'll build more neurons than ever. But I'd love to have some researchers know if people are studying that at all.
Interesting. Okay, fantastic. All amazing ideas. Thank you so much. If anything comes up and you think of anything between now and then, feel free to reach out to Adam and I. with additional ideas. Love to collect those. There is a link in the agenda to register a team. As quickly as possible, we'd love to have at least a soft number of, an estimate of how many people plan to attend. So, to the extent it's possible to do that, would love for folks to go ahead and register teams if you think that there's a possibility that you'll be there. Vanderbilt is super excited. They have committed folks to be panelists, and they're just really looking forward to the opportunity and very, very much engaged. So there is no cost to attend. Breakfast and lunch are included both days on the 20th and 21st. But you would need to get your team there, and then hotel and dinner would be not part of the summit. So that would be sort of on your own. We may have things that people do together, but that would be the cost involved there, but there's no cost to attend the summit. Okay. There is a flyer there. It is still sort of in the works, but it should give you an idea of where we're headed, where we're going to be, rough idea of the agenda, things like that. So again, welcome any suggestions you have to make it a meaningful event for you and your team. There are a couple of resources listed there as well in the resource rundown. The first two videos are some of the best explanations I have seen. Adam shared those on LinkedIn. But they're two of the best explanations I've seen about how generative AI works, in case they're useful to you as you look for resources for professional learning. And then the last one is a shift around some of those organizational changes that we talked about. It's a framework for organizational change in AI. So I just thought it was kind of interesting to throw it in there. We are going to do 2 more sessions. Originally, we were meant to stop today, but we really wanted to have some continuity between now and the summit. So we're going to do 2 more sessions. There are dates there. I'll go ahead and follow up this session with the calendar invite. Welcome everyone to attend. The next session is going to be sort of a precursor to a hackathon, a GPT hackathon, which we're going to run in April. So the March session will give you just a little background and just make sure everybody's kind of set up to walk into that hackathon totally equipped to participate. So welcome you to come and bring other folks if you would like to as well. Final thoughts or questions for the good of the group? Okay, thanks to all for your conversation today and ideas as always. Look forward to seeing you next month.